I thought I might interrupt my domestic chores by talking to you about two books, which I read recently, which in a lot of ways I thought were really sort of not my thing or might not be my thing. So it was a curiosity-induced read more than anything. The first one of those is a fantasy novel by Rebecca Yarros, and it's called Fourth Wing. And that comes to us from Little Brown. So both of these books had an unexpected effect upon me, and I'm not going to go into too much detail on those. They are similar in many ways in their content. This one, Rebecca Yarros' Fourth Wing, is one where we're in a fantasy world that sort of has a Harry Potter feel, if you like. Now, it is for adults. It has the Hunger Games feel. It also has one of those, the hating game becomes the mating game. And this is really what surprised me about my reaction to this book. In short, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I have seen all the critiques and all the comments on it being trope-filled. The other words, that the world building is perhaps less intricate than some fantasy novels, that the dragons, and there are dragons, boy, I love dragons, might have been somewhat less sophisticated. Look, it's a page turner which has the pages literally, no, I can't say literally there, but combusting. It is pretty raunchy. It's a very lusty sort of book. We have a young girl called Violet Sorrengail who, she's supposed to be a scribe. Her family, father's a scribe, mother is the commander of the riders. So we're in a kind of a battle institute which has riders, healers, the usual, infantry and scribes. But at the last minute, her mother says, no, she's got to try out, go through the trials for the riders. And she's not physically adapted to this. And, we follow her from her very first sort of, you have to get in, you have to actually get across a sort of, it's questing, get across this impossible bridge, and with all of these people who the other candidates might actually throw you off. No one is nice to anyone. And even the dragons aren't particularly nice to anyone. There's family feuds. This whole school is set up to protect this kingdom, if you like, from something that there was a kind of for the moment, slightly unspecified enemy, but they have wyverns, which if you know your mythology, they're a completely different set of genetic characteristics to dragons. Scientific fact. Sorrengail, has to get through this first trial. She's not, she's physically weak, but the brain works pretty well. Has great head for facts and mythology. And once she does kind of establish herself in this universe, which is not quite Hogwarts, it's more like Hunger Games, she knows that partly because of her, who her family is, the Sorrengails, Satan Rearson, he really has got it in for her because his family belonged to a kind of an outlaw bunch that maybe no more, then maybe have a different version of events. Look, I sighed, I cringed a lot, I laughed. Sizzler. It's that book for when you don't want to do high-end lit or you don't want to do bleak, just takes you completely out of the real world, funnily enough. And we need a bit of that. The other book I'm going to talk to you about has a similar, shall we say, raunchy content. Big Swiss by Jen Egan, and that comes to us from Faber and Faber. A young girl, I read on the back of it, dog park. I knew there were going to be dogs, so I said, right, this one's for me. Now, it wasn't at all what I was expecting. And I also found that even though part of my brain said, this isn't your sort of book, Katy, I actually couldn't put the thing down. So there's a recommendation and 3/4 for you. Young girl Greta, not young. She comes across as younger than she probably is because there's a kind of an immaturity which is essential to her character. Works as a transcriber for a self-taught, shall we say, sex therapist called Couldn't do better than that. And they live in a kind of community where there is, you kind of feel it's sort of, they're wealthy, they've kind of enclaved themselves in a way, and everybody really sort of knows everyone. This Greta is able to identify people in the community because she hears their voices all the time. She's transcribing their personal sexual issues and their personal traumas, and she kind of, would then know them by their initials because that's how they identify themselves on the actual tapes. She comes across in the dog park, she's got a dog who's great fun. She comes across this woman whose voice is highly distinctive, and she's always referred to her mentally as Big Swiss. Now, because Greta knows a lot about Big Swiss's own personal traumas, she makes comments in her sort of nonchalant conversation to her that makes Big Swiss think that basically these two women, we have connected with this incredible intuition, that this Greta is closer to her than is really possible. So maybe this kind of is a sign that they should connect. And boy, oh boy, do they connect in every way possible, in ways that I didn't even imagine. Glued to the pages I was, not that that's any comment on my own voyeurism, but this is highly amusing. It's very clever, even the sexual encounters between these two women. And Big Swiss is, happily married, but is convinced that this connection with Greta is highly meaningful because Greta seems to know her. How many times am I going to iron this particular tea towel? Even though there's this relationship going on and it's very meaningful and it's very all the way through even their sexual encounters, it's the dialogue you're listening to. It's not that it distracts you, but the dialogue is zinging. It's very clever. It's really a book about visiting your own mistakes or your own traumas and working out how you can get better. There are great dogs. There's some amazing sex. And it was a total surprise to me that I enjoyed that book, Big Swiss, and Fourth Wing quite so much. And I'm pretty sure that you will too. Have a steamy weekend.